All right, we're live here. Mike Orchard here at College Athlete Advantage. We got Greg Moore, head coach at St. Mary's College in California. Greg, how you doing today?
I'm good, Mike. How are you?
I'm fantastic. So Greg and I have been friends for a long time, and I thought he'd be a great guest to have on this interview because he's worn a lot of hats along the way, but also his experience as a head coach and pitching coach will definitely shed some insight on college baseball and inner workings. But the first thing I want to talk about, Greg, on the website, I like the way you put this when you took over St. Mary's job this past year, is you said St. Mary's education is the way it should be, private, faith-based, and preparation for life. What do you mean by that exactly?
Well, I'll give you a geographic example, and let me backtrack. Thank you for having me. I respect what you do so much, and that's why I was so excited I put the sport coat on.
Well,
You're a coach and a mentor, so
right.
I appreciate being on. I said that because imagine St. Mary's College. It's 12 miles from San Francisco, one of the most dynamic economies, but it's tucked away in this small Catholic campus that's really relationship based and drives you towards the heart of education, which is study of the mind, study of the body, study of the spirit. So nothing could be simpler and better than that education. But then you're very close to a great economy. And I see that dichotomy as a beautiful thing at St. Mary's.
We spent a lot of time in Northern California, obviously being at St. Mary's and at USF for a long time at University of San Francisco. What is your take on that part of the country? You mentioned a little bit about that as well. What can the college student expect, on and off campus in that part of the country?
Yeah, it's so unique because you are close to a big city, but where I live and where the campus is, just down the street from where I live, you almost feel that you're in Tahoe. It's got everything you need. It's got the small places to go eat, but then just down the freeway, we can get to the big financial buildings. It's really, really unique. I don't think I've seen another campus like this in California. Very different than some other places I've been.
Very cool. Well, I always tell people, anybody who listens to me, that you're kind of one of the hidden gems, not in the college baseball world because people know you, but kind of outside that college baseball world, you're kind of one of the hidden gems of coaching. I think people may not realize that you were the Team USA pitching coach. You were a top 10 assistant baseball coach for Baseball America. And what I was really impressed on with you was at University of San Francisco, you had 3 first-round pitchers at USF, and you think to yourself, okay, USF, good program, but you don't think high-end pitching talent there. So to me, it speaks to development. So my question to you is, where did that knowledge of pitching come from? Where did you gather from, and how did you accumulate that along the years?
I think the knowledge of pitching is secondary in development to the ability of the player to value the rep. And if you look at those guys that were drafted in a spot that made them money or got them notoriety, those guys valued every rep that they had the opportunity to take on the field. So as a coach, that's what I try to foster, try to fan that flame of showing up to practice every day and valuing the chance to develop, and the conversations that come from that become the magic. So I don't know if it's as much knowledge as it is encouraging the learning environment and learning from my players as well.
But you always kind of thought differently from me. I mean, at the heart, I see you as a teacher. I see you somebody who teaches, baseball and the game of life. We got to visit you guys, 7, 8 years ago up there. I sat in the one bullpen, and you had your guys singing a song. I mean, that was just one day. I mean, I would probably guess that if I go to other bullpens during a college practice, they're not singing a song. So where did that teaching and kind of alternate level of thinking develop for you as far as teaching young men?
The approach I take is whatever it takes to get this young guy better. And if that's singing a song like it was the day that you were there, if it's asking a guy to read the newspaper cover to cover because he lacks focus, I just think you have to start with the young guy, the human, and say, what does this guy need to be better at what he's really trying to do? He wants to execute the fastball in, but there's some fear in there. And how do we get him past that? Or how do we turn a weakness into a strength? I think if you take that approach, then you are a teacher. And I appreciate you saying that. I think I'm more of a teacher than I am a coach.
Yeah, the few practices I watch of you, you seem to make the practices different and not mundane. They weren't the ordinary type practices, and I think sometimes baseball can be a lot of monotony, a lot of the same reps, same stuff. But I appreciated your different types of practices and drills that you brought to your practices. So as far as pitcher goes, is there a certain type of pitcher that you like to coach? Is there a certain guy that you feel more comfortable coaching when it comes to pitchers?
I say all the time as I watch pitchers and I talk with them, steady attack wins. And if a guy can breathe on the mound, if he can continue to attack, go pitch by pitch, he can win in college baseball. College winners are not based in 95-mile-an-hour arms. They're based in the ability to keep making pitches when it's going well and make pitches when it's not going well. It's easy to say, it's really hard to do, but there's a knack within young guys. Some guys have this knack and they build it. Other guys are struggling to find it, and they will one day. But I look for guys that will continue to compete and then even before their outings, continue to work to get ready to compete. Not boredom, not school, not personal challenges is going to take them off their commitment to, hey, I'm just here to get better today. It's very simple. It's very beautiful when you find a young guy who will commit to that.
I've already complimented you on your developing guys like that they kind of have. What are some of the traits that you see to identify when you're recruiting a pitcher that you think can eventually lead into that?
I think poise is the biggest, and it's on the field and off the field. If you're able to handle some failure, process that in a way that allows you to just be rational. Well, I just gave up 11 runs in 3 innings. And I watched a guy give up 11 runs in 3 innings. And the way he handled that after the game on a phone call and then 2 days later in a sit-down meeting, I knew I wanted to recruit him in the way he processed what a lot of people would think is a terrible failure. He took it like a man. He talked about it. He knew how to rationally look at what he didn't do well and prepare well. And that tells you about a young guy's mind. Fail Forward is a good book that talks a lot about that as well.
Do you have a story? And again, I would love a specific name if you have one here, but do you have a specific story, what we kind of call the one that got away? So a guy that you recruited that you either passed on, a guy that you recruited that you lost on, or a guy that you were wrong on? Is there a guy that you recruited or watched that somehow didn't end up your place? You're like, oh man, I really missed on that one.
I think there are so many that I can just say that I often look at big league rosters and say, I didn't think he was good enough to recruit.
Right.
Look how good I am.
Fair enough. We probably all have some of those stories. Is there over years of recruiting, was there something you valued younger in your career coaching that as you got older, you probably didn't put as much emphasis on that trait?
Yes. I think in recruiting, I valued seeing thousands of players early on, probably 22 to 32. In the last few years, I've really started to value who I talk with about the young man that I'm recruiting. And the way I describe it to our coaches is we need to recruit with our ears even more than we recruit with our eyes, because trusting the person when they come to you it begins with trusting the people who are recommending them.
That was a line you told me a while back that I've always kind of stole from you, was you recruit with your ears as well as your eyes too. So now what you're saying is instead of having a breadth of guys you're looking at, you kind of more of a depth on the guys that you are looking at.
Right.
Okay. Is there when a guy gets to campus and he's walking around with his parents, you're showing him the gym and the academic room stuff too. I mean, obviously you're evaluating him. Is there something specifically, one or two things that he could do that make, I don't know if this guy, maybe for us?
2 things. Ability to communicate with people that seemingly don't matter. I value how the young guy on campus treats the waiter or waitress or the person behind the counter at the coffee shop. I value the way they talk to their parents. Communication is big. Eye contact is a second thing that I think is really important as a reflection of confidence and ability to stay in a good conversation for the learning.
Awesome. Well, you mentioned parents there, and And I don't know, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think you have a ton of parental relationships through the college time, unless I'm wrong on that. Is there when you're evaluating a parent as well, too, even though you're not coaching a parent for 3 years, is there something you're evaluating the parent on that may influence how you view the player?
Yeah, the humility of it all. I know that I've missed on 250 players in the last few years. I think there's a humility that shows in the players who are more successful. Kyle Zimmer is one of those first-round picks. He was the 5th pick in the draft a few years ago. His dad asked me on one of our initial phone calls, "Why are you recruiting my son? I don't know if he's good enough to play in Division I baseball." I think confidence is great, and belief in your son is great, but the humility is where a lot of that drive comes from. Eric Zimmer was also the guy that was picking up trash behind the bleachers after games. So I think we're all here to serve these young guys, and we got to know that we've all got warts, and it's just about making them better.
Well, as you know, we work with a lot of players in the high school to the college process, and there's a lot of noise that we deal with our families from what they hear from somebody else, from social media, from different channels. How would you suggest a family that has a son in the recruiting process in this day and age, how would you suggest they simplify the process?
Oh, this is such a good question. There is noise. I compare it to going on a long journey where you're going over uncharted terrain. Would you rather have a geologist who knows all about the rocks? He's an expert. Or do you want to go with someone you trust who understands the overall landscape? So instead of taking all the noise in and developing opinions from Twitter and even online, you have to find somebody that A, knows the landscape, and B, you can trust. They will save you heartache. They'll save you time. And you find that person that really cares. Even if he doesn't know everything, he's the guy that's going to guide the young player and go figure out the right answer. So find one or two people that you trust. Don't try to get every piece of information that's out there. A lot of it is bad.
That's good information, because I said I try, even though I was a former college coach, I get asked baseball questions a lot. And I just try to stay in my lane just because, man, I know they're getting multiple opinions on different topics. I don't want to be another voice in their ear. You mentioned, young players. I always find it interesting. When do you feel comfortable offering a player? And maybe it's a year, maybe it's an age, maybe it's certain skills that has happened. What's the youngest you've offered a player, or when do you feel comfortable enough offering a player?
We have offered a sophomore, but I might be last in the country at offering early. I measure it based on the depth of the relationship, depth, the word you used earlier. Once I feel that we've got a good understanding of who the young guy is, we know his parents to a degree, then I get to that comfort level and say, this is somebody we want to bring into our baseball family. But I think there's a little too much of the microwave recruiting going on right now. It's tough for a 14-year-old to decide where he's going to go when he's just figuring out what he's going to have for lunch that day.
Right, and you're exactly right. And I think for us, a lot of our players feel pressure to do certain things because of what they see on there. They feel like they need to be keeping up, or they're missing out on certain things. During this time with this crazy virus, and it's ironic it's in your first year coaching the St. Mary's, how prevalent is video? When you guys, I'm sure you get lots of videos like everybody gets. What do you do with it? How long do you watch it? Who watches it? And what do you take from it?
Well, video will become more important over the next few years. Just it was going that way. This situation sped that up. We watch as much as we can. It makes a difference. Then I can get on the phone with somebody like you. I know the skills are there, but I can find out what the mind is like, what the heartbeat's like. That's really what matters. It prompts the phone call to somebody I trust.
During your years, have you liked recruiting high school or JC guys, and why? Is there a certain penchant for one or the other?
It's a good question. I love recruiting them both. Different things you see for a high school guy, young guy. He's going to grow a lot in that first 5 months of college. But a junior college player adds something else also. They appreciate everything because they came from often underfunded places that give them the opportunity to play, but there's not a lot surrounding. So I really do enjoy recruiting both of them for different reasons.
You mentioned a few more questions here. We'll wrap this up. You mentioned, relying on people to give you information as well. Obviously, there's a lot of third-party services out there. The biggest ones being, PBR, Perfect Game, or some of these as well too. How well or how much do you guys use those? I mean, obviously, you guys are going out recruiting them. How much do you guys pay attention to rankings, lists, bio information, metric information? How important or how much do you guys use that information?
We do use it to a degree, but I don't view these as services. I look at the people that I get to talk to who may be running like you do or involved in the service. It's great to have information, but I can get information from 30 different places. What I want is valued opinions on the makeup, on the family, on the ability also. So we use it, but it's just the prompt to a good conversation.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of wondering too. And I think that whether everyone's this Flat Ground app, which is, shows a lot of guys stuff too. I'm like, well, what's the context behind that player, behind that 86, behind those things as well? So it's kind of like I said, a microwave, a quick hit, and kind of go from there. So two last questions here. One would be, what does the high school player not know about St. Mary's College that maybe they need to be aware of? So if they're possible fit for you guys or vice versa. So what is something about St. Mary's that the average person doesn't know?
I'll say this: if there's a more beautiful campus, find it and show it to me. Secondly, I'll say this to answer your question. I've said this and I truly mean it. If I had an 18-year-old son and he could get into St. Mary's, I would send him there. It is a beautiful education. And the baseball side, I mean, I've got all the confidence in the world in our development. But taking that aside, are you going to be happy outside of the field? For the right young guy, it's a beautiful place to go because those relationships, I can see it in a year. They are going to be with those guys for 40, 50, 60. We see it in our alumni group that I'm just getting a chance to know.
That's really cool because I think, again, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the enrollment's like, what, 2,600? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people equate to Division I as far as, the number of kids that go there, which isn't really true either, too. So a lot of times these kids want these big campuses, but again, a hidden gem they may not be aware of in St. Mary's.
Yeah, it is a hidden gem.
The last question would be, how long your tenure lasts there, 3, 5, 10, 15, 20 years. What do you want, Greg Moore's legacy to be at St. Mary's College?
Player development, player growth. My job and my goal is to be the best teacher I can be, impact these young guys. Every player that goes through our program, I want them to be free to choose what they want to do after college. And that doesn't necessarily mean they get to be a 7-foot center in the NBA. But if they want to start a business, run a business, they can take on the 80-hour, 90-hour weeks. If they want to settle into a different type of career, they can make that choice, with the right preparation. So if we do that, we get these guys ready for life and we win a lot of games. Now we're talking.
Good. Well, definitely appreciate your time because I've always thought very highly of you as far as what you've done in your coaching career and developing people too. So when we talk to our players, we talk about, the next level of coaching because a lot of times players go on campus to just commit and like their certain school. I said, but you got to really look at who you're going to be with the coaching wise for 4 years. If you don't like that guy, you're spending 4 years with this guy, You're not going to be happy. So I just want to give you credit for that because I always recommend you highly to our players. And if it works out for them, that's based on you and those players doing their job and stuff too. But I appreciate your time today, Greg, and best of luck at St. Mary's.
Mike, thank you for all you do to help young guys.
All right. You take care.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.